Hey guys, what's up? Nico again here. And in this episode of 3D Printer Profits, I have for us Lance, who is hailing from where you coming from, Lance?
I'm from Saskatchewan, Canada.
Canada. So Lance is a prop builder. Am I right, Lance?
A product designer.
Product designer. All right. And they are a full-time 3D printing company up there in Canada. And again, as always, all the links in this episode is going to be in a video description below, or if you're your favorite podcast player, it's going to be in the show notes. Also, as always, make sure you guys stay till the end of the episode for a product idea that you guys can use to start your own 3D printing side business. All right. So let's start off. Lance, buddy, how you doing, man?
I'm not too bad. It's the weekend, so it's going pretty good.
Yeah, we're a couple of workaholics here doing stuff on the weekend. Man after my own heart. So how'd you guys get started in 3D printing, Lance?
Well, I first started off, I'm just a huge nerd and I thought 3D printers were cool. And it was probably about 8 years ago, I want to say, that I first decided to get into it. So my first printer was an Ultimaker 2, and I spent a bunch of time researching printers, and I knew I wanted something high quality, like a professional machine that could really just make parts. I didn't want to go for anything cheap. So I got that Ultimaker 2, and there was about a 1 month back order on them. So I spent that whole month basically teaching myself design. I started off with 123D design from Autodesk. And me and my buds were big into RC cars. So I started designing RC car parts. And by the time the printer came in, I had, I don't know, 5 or 6 different designs just ready to go. So immediately that thing was just crushing out parts. And I immediately fell in love with it because one of the things I noticed is when I started printing my first part, it was an A-arm for a Traxxas Slash. About halfway through the print, I could just look at the print. I could be like, oh, I could change this, I could change this. And before the first print was even done, I had version 2 of it ready to go. And it just never ended. That machine just never stopped printing. And it got to the point where as soon as the print was done, I'd start getting anxious. I'm like, oh man, the machine's not printing. I gotta print something else. So I had a pile of designs just ready to go. So it was always printing new stuff. I was always learning and refining my designs. And it just kept going from there until about, I want to say, about a year after I had gotten that machine, that I finally met some of the other partners that we started up with, because I don't know anything about business. And I was basically the 3D printer guy. But I met a guy who had just gone to school for business and marketing, and he wanted to start a 3D printing business. So, but he didn't really know the 3D printing side. He had a 3D printer, but he was still kind of tinkering with it. So it was like the perfect match. He knew the business, I knew the printing. And basically it all started from there. And we had a few other people come on board with us. And that lasted a few years before me and one of the other partners that we had there decided to basically break away and just start our own business. It was just me and him. And then we brought on another guy as well for doing R&D. And that was probably 4 or 5 years ago now. So that's when we started.
Oh, congratulations, man. 5 years in business is it's a milestone.
Yeah, definitely. Like
Some people don't last a year, let alone 2, and now 5. So congrats to you guys.
Yeah, it was slow at first, but as soon as there were only a couple big jobs that we got, and those couple big jobs really helped us pay the bills and keep going. And that's really what we found it is. Like, we do hundreds and hundreds of small jobs every year, but we'll get maybe 2, 3, or 4 big jobs, and those couple big jobs provide a year or 2 worth of funding for us. And so that's really kind of what we want to focus on, is those larger jobs. And those are the product design jobs, those jobs that can last over a year with a client. That's kind of the big work that we're really focusing on now.
Okay. So let's go back. So how did you guys come up with your idea for your business, right? So what is it exactly that you guys do? You guys do product creation?
Yeah, so we do product design and development, and we basically noticed that if you're just a guy and you have an idea for a product and you want to go to a company to produce that product, your only real options are an engineering firm or injection molding, machining, a company that can do that kind of work
And
for
both
you.
cost about $10,000 minimum for a product design.
Exactly. Yeah, they usually have a startup fee over $1,000. They could be charging you $500 an hour. And I'm talking Canadian. I don't know what it's like in other countries. But yeah, a lot of engineering firms can be $300 to $500 an hour. And that's not
Mhm.
something that, they're geared towards working with a business, not working with just a guy with an idea.
Mhm.
And you realize that there's a huge untapped market there. And even for a lot of those businesses as well, like those are the big jobs we do. They are for businesses, and they see our prices and they still, why would I pay $500 an hour for this work? And they're engineers. They can provide engineering certification on their work,
Sure.
but a lot of things being developed, you don't need engineering certification on that work.
Right.
We're not designing bridges or vehicles or things that have very serious safety considerations. They're
Uh-huh.
products, they're things you can hold in your hand.
So these
So
are like more, they're like prototype then, right? So you guys are in the prototyping. Am I
yeah,
mistaken?
yeah, it's a lot of prototyping, but we have provided actual finished products for some of those bigger clients as
Mm.
well. And that's really where we try to go. Anytime we have a large client like that, we really try to be able to offer the finished product. Sometimes we can't, sometimes they have to go to injection molding, but we have contacts in the injection molding space. There's a few businesses in town that cut molds and have injection molding machines.
And
So
you
they
guys work
can,
with them as well?
exactly, yeah. So we can provide a complete local option, but still for some people, we have one client who he now has his product sold worldwide. And to China, you just can't beat their prices. So he ended up going to China to have the injection molding work done. And in hindsight, we've talked to him a lot. This was a few years ago. So he's had his runs done. His products are on store shelves now. And talking to him in hindsight, he would never go back to China again, just mainly because of the language barrier, the information barrier. It's just so hard communicating exactly what it is you want, and having them do it is very difficult because of that. So,
Nice. So yeah. Um, language barriers, it's no bueno, right? It's so hard to get your idea across and what you want across. I mean, it's hard English to English already, right? Let alone English to Mandarin or Cantonese. So how did you guys get your first clients, right? How did you guys start building this thing? So you and your buddies, separated from your first company. Now you have your own thing. And how did you guys start? How did you guys get your first clients?
well, our first clients really came from our local university. Our very first location was across the street from our university.
Hmm.
And so that's really what we tried to focus on. And some of the partners we had, they were recent university graduates. So they had lots of contacts in there. We really kind of focused on that. But we are mostly all our marketing was either word of mouth or just through Facebook. And
Okay.
starting off on Facebook, we started to get lots of reviews and feedback and stuff from a bunch of our clients
Did
through
you
the
guys have like a post on Facebook groups? What kind of Facebook marketing did you guys do?
we just had our own Facebook page, and we'd post pictures and time lapses and stuff like that of some of the stuff we had done. And a lot of it, like we're not just printing files off you or off Thingiverse and stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
every print, it's something that somebody local designed and needed us to make.
Mm.
And so I think businesses looking at that, they didn't just see, just some guys printing some cute little knickknacks or something. They saw real work being done. And that kind of showed them that it is more serious. And a lot of our initial larger jobs that we had were through the university. There's another college in town that's called the Saskatchewan Polytechnic. And that's where I went to school for machining as well. And we had some other contacts there. So we started doing jobs for the teachers there, producing teaching aids that they were using for their students. And
Mm.
some of those jobs were, over 1,000 parts that we were producing for them.
Well, that's a
So
good niche right there. Just teaching aids, man.
exactly, yeah.
You
Even
make a
for
lot
some
of money just in that product alone.
yeah, and it's great because, a classroom of 30, 40 students, especially like when I was taking machining, there were multiple machining classes running simultaneously. So
Hmm.
that's a lot of students, and all of those students need the teaching aids. And so that's why, we were doing some runs of over 1,000 parts because they had so many students and they needed so many parts per student. So there was a lot of work being done there.
Nice, man. Congratulations. So I take it that you guys also do the design work for these, correct?
Yes, I do all the 3D design at our
All right. And
business.
what software do you use for that?
I use Fusion 360 from Autodesk.
Autodesk. All right. So I know Fusion 360 has a hobbyist license, which is
Mhm.
free. And does the hobbyist license get you the full version of Fusion 360, or does it have limitations?
So the hobbyist licenses do have a few limitations. In terms of the features of the software you get to use, it's mostly got all of it. Some things like their generative design, their AI-driven design, you don't get that. And I think some of the finite element analysis you might not get as well. We do have the professional version of it, but I think the main limitation of those free versions is the amount of active designs you can have at once. I believe they're
Gotcha.
limited to 10. So as soon as you have 10 designs, you have to start archiving your designs in order to produce new ones.
Mm.
And I've seen a lot of people, I'm in a bunch of design groups and 3D printing groups on Facebook, and I see a lot of people mentioning how annoying that limitation is. And Fusion 360, their professional version, it's only $600 a year. It's not that bad. But I mean, if you're just, hobbyist, even that might just not be worth it for you. But, for a business like a $600 a year, that's nothing compared to a SolidWorks license or something like that that could run $10,000 to $20,000 a year. So
That's a lot of money.
yeah.
$20,000 a year. Some people won't even make that on their side hustle, let alone for a software cost, right? Yeah, let's expense it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
so after you guys get the design, right? You're now getting all these customers. What happened next? How did you guys build from that?
I think it really came from our first large scale job. So we were doing a lot of small stuff, um, one-offs, maybe short batch runs. We had a few clients come in for real product design, and luckily there are a few jobs that we were able to actually produce the end product for, and
Hmm.
and that's what we really tried to focus on. We've expanded what we our tools now. So at first we really just had 3D printers, but now we have CNC router, we have laser cutter, we do a lot of molding and stuff like that as well. So we have lots of different ways of producing a product. And our first major product that we developed was for a small farming automation startup
Hmm.
that was local to us. They're from a town nearby, and it was just a couple of farmers, and they had an idea for a product, and they brought in this prototype that they had made of just scrap stuff they had on the farm. And when they came in, they weren't even looking to have a product developed. All they wanted was just one gear that they needed to put in this mechanism to get it to work. But after we sat down and talked with them for a while, we basically convinced them to let us completely design the whole thing from scratch. And rather than just doing that gear,
Hmm.
but they had a um, very intense limitation, which was that there was a large agricultural expo, like the biggest expo in Canada, because I live in Saskatchewan, which is one of the basically the middle of the farming capital of our country
Hmm.
here.
Hmm.
Farming is a huge industry here, and the biggest farming expo was happening the next day.
Oh,
And they
wow.
said the only way we will let you completely design this product for us is if you can have a complete functioning prototype ready by tomorrow. And it was a pretty
Jeez.
complex mechanism. So basically, it's an automatic seed sampler, and you attach it to an auger as you're feeding grain from a truck that you've combined. It goes up the auger and into a grain bin for storage. And legally, you have to collect samples of that product to be tested to confirm it's safe and correct. So
Hmm.
that you would normally have a person with a long stick with a little cup on it. They would constantly be sticking that cup into the auger to collect this sample. So their idea was to produce a small machine that you could just bolt onto that sampling port, and that machine would collect your sample for you.
And
So
so
it
were you
had,
guys able to create this machine for the next day? That's pretty, dude, that's rush as it can get.
oh yeah, it was extremely rushed. We sat down with him for about 2 hours that day, talking to him and making sure I really understood exactly what it was. Because their prototype, it was so rough. It took me about half an hour to even just really understand what I was looking at.
Uh-huh.
It was just scrap parts, so it was really rough. But once I finally understood the purpose of the device, then I was like, okay, now I can, toss the prototype and just come up with
Start from
my own.
scratch.
Yeah.
And
So
is this the project that before we started recording, is that the project that we mentioned earlier?
no, that actually came a few years later, that one.
Okay.
But
We'll talk
yeah,
about that here in a little bit. Go ahead and finish this one.
yeah. So they showed us the electronics that they had. There was a large motor in it and a metal shaft. And those are basically the only components that we couldn't produce ourselves. So I looked at the components, I kind of came up with some ideas in my head. And basically what I told them was, I will, and this was about 1 p.m., I think, about this time. So I told them that I would work until midnight that night, do nothing but design on this product. And whatever I have by midnight, we'll toss it on the printers, come in the morning, the prints will be complete, and then we'll throw it together and hopefully we'll have something that functions. So that's what I did. I spent the next 11 hours straight just designing this product. And by midnight, I got all the parts on the farm and came in the morning, pulled them all off, and everything fit and it seemed to function fine. So they took it to the show. And when they came back at the end of the day, they said people loved it so much. They had all these ideas and suggestions about it. So here's a list of all these changes we want you to make. I want you to do the same thing you did yesterday, do all this design work, get us another prototype, because it was a 2-day expo. So they wanted a new prototype
By
to
the
take
next day. Holy cow.
and they really liked that because they wanted to show people there that, look, we took all your feedback. The very next day we've come back with an improved product that we've taken into consideration all the changes you guys have mentioned, and here it is, and it works. And so that's what we did. They went back the next day, they got a ton more feedback on it, everybody loved it. And then from that point onward, we spent probably another 6 or 7 months just developing it to the point that the end product now is actually 3D printed. And they bought a print farm off us, they got some training from us, and I still do all of their design work for them. But now they produce this product themselves locally. They have a few large agricultural companies as their clients now that they produce these products for. And
Nice.
yeah, this was maybe 4 or 5 years ago that we did this, and we are still working on this project. He has clients that have new demands of the product, and so he comes to us with the new ideas that he has and the requirements that clients have, and we modify the parts to create versions of the product for specific clients. And I think he's probably got 5 different versions of the product now for different companies that he's taken on as clients, as well as a few different versions that he actively sells to the public.
Cool, man. So I'm I'm trying to figure out how much that project paid you guys, and that's a big number.
Yeah, so
That's a
the
big
initial,
number. We don't have to talk about it, but I want everybody watching and listening right now, you guys, that's a big number. Farming is big business. And for them to design something like that and for them to take that kind of business to the next level, that's a big number. So congratulations to you guys. That's
definitely, and I can talk about the financials of this project as well, because this was quite a while ago.
okay. Go
So
ahead.
the initial product run, when we basically going from the moment they first stepped in to the point when we had completed the design and they had gone on to producing the parts themselves, that was about $45,000.
Whoo, nice.
So yeah, it was a good chunk of change that provided over a year of bills paid for us. So after that,
I'll
we
pay for
knew,
SolidWorks.
Yeah, yeah, that'd get us a year to the SolidWorks.
So let's talk about that, the six-figure payout, because I'm really interested in that. I want to hear that story. Let's talk. Can we talk about that six-figure payout?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's do it.
So this is by far the biggest job we ever had. I believe it came in about a year and a half ago, and it was for a mining company. So this company, they did horizontal drilling, and they have these massive drills. They drill horizontally, and they have a handheld scanner. And this handheld scanner, it's like $50,000-$60,000 for one of these scanners. But basically, a guy walks around with it, and it maps out the path that the drill is going to take. So it's a very important piece of equipment, and it's very advanced, very expensive. But the issue is it doesn't have any type of protection. It's not really waterproof. It's not protected from impacts or anything like that. And so the company, and they don't make this mining scanner either. They just buy it. But the mining company came to us and they said, we want some sort of protective enclosure for this device, something that'll be waterproof, that'll be impact resistant and stuff like that. So we started off very simply, and all I did was they brought the scanner in. We did some 3D scanning of it to get the shape. I then, from that, created a 3D model of the object itself, because it's a very important device. They couldn't keep it there for long. But I
How
think
big
we
is
had,
it? So it's a handheld device, right? So
yeah,
in
it's
my head, I'm
handheld,
thinking you
probably,
designed a phone case. In my head.
but it's pretty large. I would say it's about the size of like an extended ATX computer. Like
Okay.
a
All right. All right.
Yeah, so it was pretty big. It was designed to be held in one hand, but it was a very large
Oh,
device.
okay. All right.
Yeah, so all I did was I scanned it, created a 3D model of it, and then I started designing a very simple enclosure for it. And we printed that enclosure just out of regular PLA plastic. And that was basically our initial prototype to show kind of the shape of the device and to confirm that the dimensions I had for it were correct and it would actually fit over the device. So we did that and things were good. And at first we were talking to them about actually having the end product be 3D printed, but we didn't really, because they needed a lot of these. At first, I believe their initial order was 200 of them, and they're very large. We only had a few printers at the time that were actually big enough to print these.
Mm-hmm.
And the print time, there were two halves, and the print time on each
And what
half,
machines were these?
these were the CR10 500s, so the half meter by half meter by,
Holy cow! Even the 5S, huh? Or
yeah,
the
and
S5. Sorry, the S5. Yeah,
yeah,
and that's
and
huge, dude.
yeah, they're huge, and I had modified them with those high-end E3 Titan V6 extruders with volcanoes, big nozzles on them. So we were printing with a 1 mil line width, like a 0.3, 0.4 mil layer height. So you had a pretty high volumetric flow on them, and still, I think each half was around 20 hours. So it'd be about 40 hours of printing just to produce one of these.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't really think to be able to produce an end product that it'd be efficient to do it 3D printed like that.
Uh-huh.
So we sat down with the client and we basically came to the conclusion that it would probably be best to actually produce these out of carbon fiber. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a client who does custom carbon fiber work. And we brought him in and we basically talked to him about producing these parts out of a pure carbon fiber for us instead. So we kind of switched gears and I started producing molds so that he could do this. And then I designed some seals. So we had some seals to make a waterproof unit. And we had those extruded by a company out in Toronto or something, I think,
Mm-hmm.
out of some sort of rubber. And then I designed some clasps and some latches as well. And we also had a very small injection molded part that that rubber company produced for us as well, and a few clamps on it and a few foam pads on the inside to provide some sort of impact absorption, stuff like that. And that lasted from the initial prototype to the point that we were basically starting to have all the final products brought in. Was about 7 or 8 months. So it was pretty quick for that. And considering this final product, not a single part of it, there was no 3D printed components on it at all. So we had produce everything using traditional manufacturing techniques. And granted, the carbon fiber work, that was all done by hand by our clients. And in the end, we've produced those 200, and we're hoping, they basically said they're interested in moving this product to the States now as well. And they said in the States, there's about a 10 times larger market for it. And they've talked about bringing them to Europe as well. So that's pretty much up to where we are right now. And we're
So you
still
guys are
talking.
still working on this current project.
Yeah, the initial run of 200 units has been completed, and that was about a $250,000 job.
Whew!
Yeah, it was.
What a payout.
Yeah,
Congratulations, man.
and it's one of those things you never expect it. Like, a guy just came in and talked to us, and he had this idea.
Yeah, you'll never know, dude.
And that was one of the main things too with our location. We're in the industrial area of our city, and we've moved recently, but we were in kind of a mini mall. So there were people who would be walking around there going to other businesses. And so we have a lot of walk-in traffic, and people just kind of wander in and talk to us, and they have an idea, and it turns into a real job.
That's
And that's
awesome, man. So do you guys have like, my guess is you guys have a giant print farm at this point. So you say you're still at a mini mall. Would you guys like then go to your own warehouse where you have, 18 rows of, things like this, is just printers? You know what I mean?
Well, actually, when we were at the mini mall, we moved at the beginning of this year, just across the street actually, to a space that's a little bit larger. But the building we were in before, it had offices and basically lots of walls that were breaking up the workspace. And we had all this equipment that wasn't really fitting in there anymore because of all these walls. So we recently moved to a new spot. It's 2 large bays. They're open, rectangular, and there's way more open space. We can fit all of our equipment now. But at our old location, we had a small little nook that we had built a bunch of shelves. So we basically had 2 tiers of printers. And I believe we had, at most, we had 24 printers in this little nook. And those 24 printers, they were crushing parts, and it was awesome. We also produced printers to sell for schools as well. So
Awesome.
we train the schools. We've got about a dozen schools in our province now that are running our printers. But now that we moved to our new
What
location,
aren't you guys doing? Holy cow.
yeah, we've really broken into like every market we could. And I think a big part of that is because we had, actual business people who have gone to school for business and marketing and stuff like that. And, we're not just like a guy in our basement with an idea of printing stuff and trying to make money. We had real people, real educated people on how to run a business. And that's where all these ideas came from to, let's break into schools. Our first school was actually the school that one of our old partners had gone to, his high school, and he was still really close with one of the industrial arts teachers there. And we talked with her, and she spearheaded the whole thing and basically got some grant money to get the printers in their school, and really helped us promote it to other schools.
So so
That's
do you guys get paid for these educational talks, if you will, educational pieces for the schools?
Yeah, so we don't just sell the school a printer, we sell them a package, and that package includes all the training, the printers, setup, repair work, warranties, stuff like that, training on the software and everything.
And
as
this is
well.
ran by just you and your buddy? There's no way.
Yeah, it's like when I first started out, I was really socially awkward, public speaking and stuff like that. I wasn't good at it all.
And now you're on a podcast. Check you out.
Yeah, so like I've done so much public speaking and mainly educational teaching and stuff like that. So that now I've taught students as well. I actually taught all the industrial arts teachers across the province. They had a summit here in town, and I taught them all a Fusion 360 class during their summit, which was awesome because it was at my old high school. And so I got to see all my old high school teachers. They were all there taking my class, which was pretty awesome. And I've learned so much about educational teaching and stuff like that, that I also have my own YouTube channel. where I have a lot of instructional videos on using Kira, how to set up Kira, and some
Sweet.
Fusion 3D videos as well.
Yeah, give me that link, man. We'll link that in the show notes so everybody can go to that.
Yeah, definitely. My YouTube channel is A Science Potato, so you can look it up. It's really instructional videos. Yeah, that's kind of my gamer tag, my handle. So.
I
And,
wasn't. That's not what I had in mind when you
yeah,
said this man. You're Lance. You're like low key funny. You just you'll crack a joke and you're like, what did he just say? That was good, bro. So no Etsy, none of that stuff for you. You guys are like big business. $250,000 for a job. That's bananas.
yeah. We don't sell anything online. We're not even a storefront really. Like nobody. We don't have people come in to buy stuff. We have people come in who pay us to make stuff for them. And that's really our main focus, because at first we did try to actually produce things and have a storefront for people to come and buy stuff, but we found it didn't really work. And I think that was mainly due to the public perception of 3D printing. Usually when you print stuff, you want them to be very lightweight, so they print fast and they don't use a lot of material. And I notice a lot of people, when they pick up things that are printed, they weigh so little that it has an impact on what they think of that
Yeah,
product.
the
It weighs,
perception. I agree. And that's why
yeah,
when they pick up a resin print versus an FDM print, they're like, oh, this resin is this feels better. There's because there's
exactly.
some weight to it.
Yeah, so we realized that. We realized a lot of other stuff. We tried printing all kinds of things that we just tried to sell for 5, 10, 15 bucks and have a storefront doing that. But we get all these people coming in who's like, hey, I have an idea for a product, and that turns into a $5,000 job. So why bother putting in all this effort to sell a $10 or $15 knickknack when we could focus on those guys who will pay thousands of dollars to have something important to them made? Because when those guys come in, they already know what they want, and they can't get it anywhere else. Or if they can,
Right. A lot. It's a lot easier to sell on that point.
exactly. So they'll come in and they're willing to pay because they know that we can make it for them. So we don't have to make something where we have no idea how well it's going to sell. We have people coming in, and that's a guaranteed job right there.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, it was more reliable. There's way more income in a job like that. So that's really what we focused on.
Dude, that's awesome. So what's next for you guys, man? What's in the next frontier? $400,000 jobs?
Yeah, that's what we're always looking for, is the next big product design job. Like in between those big jobs, we do a lot of part replacement. We have people coming in every day with broken parts that you can't get anymore. And that's the majority of what I'm doing outside of big product design jobs, is just part replacement, or people need things modified. They'll come in with a part and they're like, oh, I wish this part was like this or like this and something. So it's something that already exists, and I can just measure it, create a CAD model, and produce it for them. And that's the majority of the work we do. And that, keeps the bills paid, keeps us paid while we're waiting for that next big job to come in.
Mhm.
And so we always try to focus on that product design. That's basically, when it comes to marketing, that's the main thing we push, is the product design. But we also, we'll do part replacement and replication and stuff like that as well. And because that's really what the vast majority of the work we do is. In terms
Gotcha.
of the
Gotcha.
large jobs, we've had, maybe a dozen jobs that were over $10,000, going all the way up to that $250,000 job. Most of our jobs are in the hundreds to low thousands range. And that's a good range. Like, we don't do work for about less than $100. Our minimum charge for having a design and a print made is about $100, and it's just not worth it to do work for less than that. And for just printing, like if someone comes in with a design, our minimum printing charge alone is $30. So it's pretty cheap, but still it's not cheap enough for some people. Some people have a perception now from 3D printing that, oh, you can 3D print stuff so cheap. We'll have guys coming in with a design they found on Thingiverse, And I'll be like, yeah, this will fall under a minimum charge of $30. And that might even be too much for them. Some people say, oh, well, I can buy it on the internet for like $10. And then, I'm just like, well, that's great. You should do that then, because we're not paying bills doing a $10 job, you
Right.
know.
Cool, man. So, what would be your number one tip for anyone who wants to start their own 3D printing business or just a side business? Because you guys started with just RC cars, right?
Yeah, honestly, the best thing to do from my experience anyways is learn how to do 3D design and offer that as a service. So we bill $125 an hour for 3D design.
I'm so undercharging. Holy cow.
Pretty much more like, I don't know the ratio of profit that we make from design compared to printing, but I can pretty much guarantee that we make more doing 3D design than we do from the actual printing that we make. And I've been designing for the last 7 years, and I've done real professional work. So for us to bill 125 is totally reasonable. Plus, when you consider engineering firms, which is really what you would compare us to, they're billing $300 to $500 an hour for the
Easily,
same
yeah.
service. So
And that's
to
just
some
design.
people,
That's not including getting the injection mold. What if you get the mold wrong? What if the parts don't fit?
yeah,
All that shit. So that you're up to $10,000, $20,000 for a prototype that may or may not work. And that's not including market research, whether the market is going to want to buy your product,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
So people can get their products done and made pennies on the dollar with 3D printing and going to a shop like you guys.
exactly. So I really, plus it's so much more professional. If the only thing you can offer is the ability to print a file that somebody else has, you are so limited in what your potential income is,
I
because
agree.
you can't create anything. You can only make what has already been made.
Mhm.
And you're missing out on a massive market by doing that.
I agree. So that's it for me and Lance. I told you guys to stay till the end of the episode for your product idea for you, what you guys can 3D print and make. So we're going to give you two things. The first thing is to learn 3D design. I'm just going to jump on what Lance said. You guys take 6 months, just disappear for 6 months and learn 3D design, whether it's Fusion 360 or Blender, which I teach, and the link for that is in the description below too. And just learn it. Take 6 months, take an hour a day, but at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, just learn. And for 6 months straight and see where you can be. You guys, it's small incremental steps that get you to where you're just far miles and miles ahead of everyone else. The product idea that I was going to go to, which is the next part, is where Lance started, RC cars. You guys, the RC car market is huge, right? And there's parts when they race, they crash, the parts that they need. Hell, I've seen RC car tires being 3D printed now just with TPU, right? You can have custom treads on these that you guys can have for them. And if your shop was just strictly RC car parts, dude, that's a big side hustle just in that. So learn design, learn how to design RC car parts, print RC car parts, and design custom ones for people. Bang, right there, side hustle for everyone. Lance, did I get anything wrong?
No, it sounds good.
Right on the money, right? I think so.
Absolutely. That's
So
how I
again,
started.
what's that?
That's how I started.
And now he's $250,000 for one project. It's bonkers, dude. Congratulations. So again, Lance, thank you for being here. Congratulations for everyone watching. Again, all the links for this episode is in the description below. If you're in your favorite podcast player, it's in the show notes. Again, Lance, I'll catch you later, man. Peace out.
Yeah, sure.
All right, go.
So yeah, selling to businesses is really where the real money is. Because
B2B. I agree.
some guy might not be willing to pay you $5,000 for something if you give him a quote like that. But to a business, $5,000 is nothing. $20,000 could be nothing. It really
Because
depends
they
on the
see it as
business.
an investment.
Exactly.
They
And
don't
they're
see
they
it
know
as I'm getting something and I'm not going to get anything back. When they give you the $20,000, they expect a return on that.
Exactly, and it's local too. That's I found a lot of businesses now, they don't like having to buy parts overseas. They if they can get something local, they'll pay twice as much
I
for it
agree.
because
If I had a manufacturing company of injection molding here where I am, I'd go with them. Now, I do
absolutely.
have a question for you, and I forgot to ask it during the interview. That's why I just you gotta love bonus content, right? Do you guys do profit sharing with them for your product?
Not really, no. Like we bill what we bill for our work, and then those injection molding companies, whatever they have to do, they bill for that work. So we
Mhm.
don't really.
Well, because for design, right? You can ask for profit share. Be like, hey, I just want a 2% profit share on what you guys make on this.
Well, we have done a few jobs in the past. I can think of one off the top of my head. Is actually for a toilet seats. We were making some custom toilet seats for a guy, and he ended up going on Dragon's Den. I should mention too, we've had like 5 clients actually on Dragon's Den, and
No way, dude.
yeah, and with this guy, we did do some profit sharing with him. The products, he went to Dragon's Den. He didn't end up getting picked on it, but he's still promoting it and doing his own stuff with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sometimes if the client can't afford all the work that has to be done, we will, if we have a lot of confidence in the product, we will do that profit sharing, but it's very, very rare. Like I said, I can think of about 2 times that we've done that. So it's not very common.
Okay. No, because that would increase profits. It wouldn't even be revenue. It would be straight profit for you guys just because you're making money on the design. And it would just increase profit for you guys by a lot, actually, depending on the life of the product.
Exactly. It depends on how successful the product could be. And with his product, I think, we probably put in 6 to 8 months of development before it was really something that could be
That's a
even
long time.
exactly. So we really have to weigh the pros and cons of it and determine what kind of confidence we have in it. Because if we do decide to go ahead with it, like I said, it could be 6 months to a year of work before we would even be able to start seeing some revenue on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that, that could be $20,000-$30,000 that we're not billing the client because we have that confidence in the job.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a lot of risk for sure.
It is cool.